This lesson is for Math 140, and this is the Chapter 14 review over descriptive statistics. So on your handout, you have these problems. We're going to go through each one. These are the same types of questions that will be on the test that you will be taking. And so let's go through each type. So the data shows the number of passengers per car on a train. Construct a frequency table, a relative frequency table, and a bar graph for the data. So then it gives us all of that data. So first thing we want to do is go through and count how many of each number that we have. So if you go through and add all of these up, I would just count how many there are. There are 36 total. So let me turn my lights on. So our number for the total is 36. So when we count them all up, we should have 36. So our first set of numbers here is 45 to 49. So if we go through and look at our 40s, okay, our first number, we have a 48 right here. And, oh, we skipped a 49 right there. There should be one more 40. Where is it? Oh, right there. Okay, so we see that there are 3 of those. From 50 to 54, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think I'm missing one more. Oh, there's the other one, 8. So there's 8 total for that category. Then 55 to 59, we have, let's go the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 from 55 to 59. And then 60 to 64 should be everything that's left over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of those. Okay, so remember to find your relative frequency, you're just taking each of those numbers and dividing it by the total. So 3 over 36, if we divide that and then change it to a percent, we're getting 8.3%. Okay, if I do 8 over 36 and change it to a percent, I'm getting 22.2%. Then my 10 over 36, if you divide that and then change it to a percent, we get 27.8%. And then the 15 over the 36, divide it, change it to a percent, is 41.7%. So again, when you divide these, you get a decimal, and then you move it over 2 places to make it to the percent. Okay, so for our numbers on the sides, this is going to be our relative frequency. And here across the bottom, this is going to be our number of passengers. So we're going to put each of the categories we have here. So I'm going to count here. Each of these lines I'm going to count as 2. So this is like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Oh, sorry. This one we're just doing, oh yeah, it says relative frequency. So I needed bigger numbers. So let me try that again. If we want to do the relative frequency, we're going to want to have numbers that go up to 47. So let's count these instead by fives. So this would be like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Okay, so if we have relative frequency, we're actually doing the percents. So we will do the percents here. Okay, so for our first category, it's 45 to 49. Second category was 50 to 54. Third category, 55 to 59. And then we had 60 to 64. And then we're just going to go up about as high as it would be. So like 8.3%. Okay, it's probably about there. Okay, for the 22.2%. Okay, about halfway between. And then for the 27.8, about right there. And then for our last one, 41.7 is probably about here. Okay, and of course you can kind of just shade those in or however you want to do it, but as long as you have the bar graphs, you're probably good. Okay, so that would be making your frequency table, and your one on the test will look very much like this, of course, just different numbers. Okay, let's look at number 2. Present the two sets of data on a single stem and leaf display. So remember the one we did on our notes where we had two sets of numbers. So if we look here at both of our sets of numbers, you kind of want to look at them first. Okay, we want to see what is our lowest. These are all 2-digit numbers. So we see some numbers that have 1 all the way up to our highest. We see some numbers that begin with 4. So let's start with that in the center of our stem and leaf display. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then if we look at the group A, okay, we're going to go through and look first for all the ones that start with the number 1. Okay, so if I look through here, I've only got this 18. And I have a second 18 right there. So for this one, when I go to write my leaves, okay, remember the stem is the 1, so then I have 2 8s. Okay, now I'm going to do the 2s. So I'm just going to cross them off as I use them to make sure I get them all. Okay, so I'm looking for things that start with 2, and I want the lowest one first. So if I go through and I look, I have a 21. So I'm going to write a 1 right there. Okay, and then I have a 22. Where's that one? Right there. So kind of line them up as you go. And then there is a 25. So I'm cross that one off. Show that I wrote it. Okay, then there is a 26 right here. And then we have a 29, the very first one there. Okay, so we just keep counting, and again, closest to your stem, you have the lowest number up to the highest number as you work out. Okay, then for 3s, if I'm looking through at my 3s, the lowest one I have is this 32. So I'm going to put the 2 first, and then I have a 33. And that is the next lowest. Okay, and then after that, I have a 36 right there. And then after that, I have a 37. There's just one of those. So notice as I go, I'm trying to line those up. Okay, and then my next one, if I look at my 30s, is 38. And then I have a 2 39s. So sometimes, if it's easier for you, you can put them all in order first and then go through and break them up into your stem and leaf plot. Okay, just make sure you've got all of them that have the 30s. And then for my 40s, okay, if I go through and look, I have a 42. And then if I keep going, I have another 42. So I need another 2. And then 43, there's several. There's 1, 2, 3 of those. So 1, 2, 3. And then my last is the 48. And now you can see that I've used all of them. Okay, so then let's go to B. So again, we're going to do the same thing. Go through and look for anything that starts with a 1. So I do have an 11 there. So that's my lowest one. And then if I look, keep looking, I have a 16 and an 18. So I need a 6 and an 8. Okay, then for my 2s, I go through and I try to find the smallest one is 20. So I need a 0. And then I have 2 21s. So one's right there and right there. And then I have 3 22s. 1, 2, 3 of those. So I need 3. Wrote the wrong number there. 3 2s. 2, 2, 2. And then I have a 23. So I need a 3. And I have a 24. So I need a 4. This one has a lot. And then 26. And then 28. And finally, I have a 29. So now I've done all my 20s. So now I'm going to move to my 30s. So if I look at my 30s, lowest one is 32. Put a 2 there. Then I have a 33. And then I have a 37. And then a 38. And a 39. And again, look at how I am lining those up. Okay, and then the only thing I have left is a 47. So this one just has the 1. Okay, and then that's all you're asked to do is just make a stem and leaf plot. I'll give you a minute if you need to finish writing that down. Okay, let's look at number 3. The manager at a deli counted the customers once each hour over a few busy weekends. Use the results to answer the questions. So what was the smallest number of customers in the deli and how often did it occur? Okay, so if we're looking at the smallest number of customers, well, obviously, if we're looking at this chart, our smallest number of customers, because remember these are customers along the bottom, smallest number of customers is 0. So that means there was nobody in the store. And then how many times did that occur? When they counted, it happened 12 times. And then what was the largest number of customers and how often did it occur? So again, this is your number of customers. The most customers we ever had in the store all at once was 12. And then how many times did it occur is how tall that bar is. Now here you're kind of just estimating. It looks like it's slightly above the bar, but we're just going to say 2 because it's not all the way up there to the 3. So we're going to just say that 2. Okay, what was the most frequently occurring non-zero customer account? So 0 was obviously the highest, but if we look to see what was the next highest bar, it's this one right here. Okay, and so that's when we had 6 customers, happened most frequently other than 0. And then it says for how many hours were the customers counted? So this is where we add all of the heights of the bars together. So I'm going to write down the numbers and then we can add those all up. So like for the first one we had 12, then we had 9, and then we had 3, and then we had, what is that, 6, 7, and then we had 11 it looks like, that blue bar, and then for 7 it was 9, and then for 8 we're sitting at 6, and then for 9 we're at 4, and then they didn't have any for 10 or 11. At 12 we had 2. So if we add all of those up, we have a total of 63 hours. They counted the customers. So it says, for what fractional part of the total number of hours were there more than 8 customers in the deli? Okay, more than 8 would be just these ones. Okay, so then we're going to make a fraction out of those numbers. So here we get, for the 9, there was 4, and for the 12, there was 2. So if we're doing 4 plus 2, that equals 6, and we're doing a fractional part. So we're going to put that 6 over the 63. Okay, which 3 can go into each of those. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 3 goes into 63 21 times. So that simplifies to 2 over 21. So that one you're just looking at the graph and then answering some of the questions. Okay, let's look at number 4. The bar graph shows the number of bachelor's degrees conferred to men and women in selected years. In which years were more bachelor's degrees conferred to men than to women? Okay, well, if you look on this graph, men are in blue. Now yours aren't colored, but you can see it's darker. So the darker one is the men. And the women are orange. And of course on yours, it's the lighter gray or the women. Okay, just like the boxes because it didn't print in color. So if we look, we're looking for in what years do we have more men than women? So the blue bars are taller than the orange bars. So we can see that happened in this year and in this year. After that, the women had more degrees, which does seem to be the current trend, that more women are going to school and graduating with degrees than men. So they have 1950 and 1970. So you're going to have something similar to this on the test. It might have different bar graph. It might ask for which one has more women than men, or it might be, you're just looking for the facts from the graph. Read carefully. Okay, we're going to find the mean, median, and mode for this distribution. So to find the mean, we have to go through and we're going to add all of these scores together. So if you add those numbers together, we get a total of 64. And if you count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 scores. And so 64 divided by our 9 gives us 7.11. Okay, so with that one, okay, if you get more decimal places, just round to 2 places. Okay, so we'll stick to that. If it ends, put what it ends at. But if you get lots of decimal places, then just round to 2 decimal places. Okay, so remember, mean means average. Okay, your median is your middle number. So sometimes it's easiest to put them in order from least to greatest. I got my 7 in there. 8, 8, and 11, and 14. Okay, since we have 9 numbers, the one in the center is going to be your median. So some people like to cross off on each side till we get to the middle. And we'll notice here, if we use that method, we end up with the 7 as the median. So think about median as the middle. Okay, so what do we get for when we're in the middle? Okay, your mode, the way I remember that one is MO stands for most often. Now remember, we can have 2 modes. We can have no modes. You can have 1 mode, 2 modes. But if you get more than 2, then we just say there's none. Okay, so if we look back at our numbers when we put them in order, we had 2 3s, 2 5s, 2 8s. Well, that's too many, so this one's just going to say none. Okay, because we don't want to have too many modes. Okay, number 6, very similar. This one, though, we are going to be using our graph to help us find the mean, median, and mode. Okay, so remember, with the frequency table, this tells me how many 8s I have. I have 3 8s. I have 4 9s, and so forth. So in order to calculate the mean for this one, I'm going to have to take each of those and multiply it. So instead of listing out 8, 8, 8, we're just going to do 3 times 8 plus 4 times your 9 plus 3 times your 10 plus 4 times your 11 plus 6 times your 12. Okay, and if I plug all of that into the calculator, I end up with 206 as my sum. Now I have to figure out how many total do I have here. So if I add 3 plus the 4 plus the 3 plus the 4 plus the 6, and again I'm getting those numbers from the heights of the bars. Okay, when I add those up, there is a total of 20. So for my mean, I'm going to take that 206 and divide it by 20. Okay, and when I divide that, I get 10.3 for my mean. For my median, we're looking for the middle score. Okay, no, I don't have to list them all out, but what I want to think about is if I had 20 scores, then the number in the center, if you take 20 and divide it by 2, means 10, and then the next one is going to be 11. So I want the 10th and the 11th score. So I'm just going to go through and use my heights of my bars to figure that out. So I got 3 8s, then I have 4 9s, so that's 7, and then 3 10s gets me up to 10. Okay, so my 10th number is a 10, and so my 11th number is an 11. Okay, so I have two numbers in the center, the 10 and the 11, so I'm going to add those together, and since there's two of them, I divide it by 2. That's because we have an even number of scores here. So 10 plus 11 gives me 21 over 2, which gives me 10.5. So my median is 10.5. Okay, when they're in bar graphs, it's super easy to find your mode because you're just looking for which one is the tallest bar. Okay, so the 12 is my mode. Remember, it's not how high your bar is, but the number on the bottom. So that is the 12. Okay, we're going to do something very similar here on number 7, except for instead of having it into a bar graph, we just have it as a frequency table. So these are our numbers, and then this is how often they appeared. Remember, that's what the F stands for, is the frequency. So we have 5 4s, 9 5s, 2 7s, and so forth. So in order to find our mean, very similar to it last time, if I want to find my denominator, I'm going to add all of my frequencies together. So if I add 5 plus 9 plus 2 plus 1 plus 8 plus 2 plus 5, if I plug those all into the calculator, you'll see that we get a sum of 32. So there's 32 total scores here. Okay, then very similar to what we did on the last one, we're going to take each of those numbers and multiply it by its frequency. So you get 4 times 5, 5 times 9, plus your 7 times 2, plus your 8 times your 1, plus your 9 times your 8, plus your 11 times 2, plus your 12 times 5. Okay, so you're going to plug all of that into your calculator. Okay, and when you do that, this total comes up to be 241. So remember, to find the mean, we're going to take the sum over the number of scores, which is our 32. When we divide this one, it comes up to be 7.53. So that is my mean. Remember, one quick check that you can do for your mean is it has to be somewhere between these numbers. So somewhere between 4 and 12, which our number is right about here in the middle. Okay, it should never be greater than 12 or less than 4. Okay, my median now, again, we're going to do very similar to what we did with our bars, is we're going to look here. We know we had 32 total scores. So again, if we take 32 and divide it by 2, we see the 16th and also the one next to it, and the 17th number we're going to be adding together. So we're looking for 16 and 17. So we're going to go through here and add these up. So 5 plus 9 gives me 14. And then 15, 16. The 16th number would be a 7. And so the 17th number would be an 8. So I'm going to do 7 plus 8, add those two numbers up and divide it by 2. This gives me 15 divided by 2, which is 7.5. So that is my median, is 7.5. So halfway between. And if you have whole numbers, halfway is going to be in the middle, 0.5. Okay, for our mode on this one, we're going to look at our frequencies. Okay, we can see the highest frequency is 9, and that was for the number 5. So my mode is 5. That one occurred most often. Okay, on number 8, we're going to find the 5-number summary for the distribution and draw a box and whisker plot. Okay, so it's going to be most helpful if you can put these numbers in order. Okay, so if you look at these numbers, my smallest number is 12. Okay, we got cut off on the last one, but you're going to start by putting these in order. So let's start with putting our 12 first. Then you'll see the next number in order is 13. Then 19. Then the next number, 22. And if we keep looking, we have 2 28s. And then we have a 29. And the next number in order, we have 2 35s. And then a 37, 41, a 45, a 47, a 48, and a 55. And always just count them, make sure that you have the same numbers. So like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 total numbers. And I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we have all of them. Okay, that's very important. Okay, so to find our 5-number summary, it starts with your first number. Okay, so that's your smallest number. Okay, so that's your minimum. Okay, and then we go to our maximum, which is the 55, and that goes in the last slot. Okay, then the next thing to find is your median, the number in the middle. Okay, so I had 15, so the number in the middle is going to be number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 means this first 35 is right in the center. And then we go between there and our minimum. So we're only looking at these ones on this side. So don't include the one you circled. Okay, if you notice in total, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. So the one in the middle is going to be the 4th number. Okay, so that means we're going to have the 19 for this side, and over here, the 4th number, 1, 2, 3, 4, is the 45. So those are your interquartiles. So quartile 1, quartile 3. So the 19 would go here, the 45 goes there. So that's what they mean by the 5-number summary. You got your minimum, the first quartile, the median, which is actually your second quartile. That's why I call the first one quartile 1, median's quartile 2, or we just call it the median. 45 is your quartile 3, and then your max is the 55. So think about doing these numbers on a number line. Okay, where we're going to put our min on one side, which is our 12, our max on the other side. It's a good idea just to label them. Okay, then think about where 35 is in relation to that. Okay, it's about 20 from the 55, and you're talking about 23, so it's a little bit closer to this side than it is. So I'm going to put my 35 there. That's my median. And then my quartile 1, 19 is actually closer to the 12. Again, they don't have to have specific numbers, but kind of like just kind of estimate like where is it closer to. Okay, and then your 45 is right about in the middle between the 35 and the 55. So I just put it right there. Oops. Actually want to move that one down here because this is my quartile 1 and my quartile 3. And then remember, around those ones in the middle between quartile 1 through your median and up through your quartile 3, this is where we make the box. Okay, so it shows the majority of our scores are between the 19 and the 45, but we go as high as 55, that's our max, and we go as low as 12. So then they call this the box and whiskers. Here's the box, and think about like cat whiskers going out to the side. Okay, on 9, find the range, mean, and standard deviation of the data set. Okay, well, if you look at your numbers here, okay, to find your range, remember range is simply just saying how far is the spread. These are already in order for you. So you're basically taking your 17 minus 5 to see how far apart are these. And that equals 12. So my range is 12. Okay, to find our mean, we simply have to add the numbers together. So we're going to take the 5 plus 9 plus 10 plus 12 plus 13 plus 17. Okay, if we add all of those up, we get 66. And if you count here, we have 6 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to take that and divide it by 6, which gives us 11, which again, when you are getting these numbers, your 11 should be somewhere between your highest and lowest number, which it is. So our mean is 11. Now, we learned a very complicated way to find our standard deviation. Okay, remember you can also use your calculator to find the standard deviation. So I'm just going to go through, I'm not going to show you the calculator stuff, but how you can find it. So remember on your calculator, you can press Stat, okay, and then we go to Edit, and then you're going to enter your data into L1. Okay, so I'm just going to put L1 here. So next to L1, list 1, make sure there's nothing else in your other lists. Okay, we're going to go through and type in our numbers. So I'll give you a minute to do that on the graphing calculator. Okay, after you have those numbers entered on your graphing calculator, okay, then you're going to go back to Stat. So that's the Stat button that's on the calculator. You're going to press Calculate, and then you're going to choose the 1 bar, which stands for variable, stats. Okay, and then just make sure that it has L1 in there as your data. So when you go through and you do 1 variable stats and you're doing it for your list 1, L1, okay, it's going to give you your standard deviation. Okay, which if you go through, remember the standard deviation for this, since this is the whole population here, you're going to look for the one that has that theta symbol. So this one comes up to 4.05. Okay, so no, you do not have to do the long, complicated math version of finding the standard deviation. You can just use the one variable stats like we learned in class. Okay, if you look on there, it also gives you your mean, so you can check the answer that you got for your mean and see that it's 11. Okay, same thing with this next one. Okay, yes, you can calculate the mean like we've done before. Okay, so remember we did one earlier where you do 2 times the 2 plus 3 times the 4 plus 4 times the 4 plus 5 times 0, which is just 0, plus 6 times 1. If we put all of that together, we get 38. And then if I go through and add my scores, 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So we end up with 11 total here. So we're going to take that 38 and divide it by 11. And this gives us 3.45. Okay, so again, this number has to be between the 2 and the 6. So look at your x values, make sure your mean is between there. Okay, and it makes sense that we're somewhere between here because that's about what halfway point of our values. Again, to find our standard deviation, you can use what we used before. Stat edit, then go to your stat calc. Okay, this time though, since we have a frequency table, you're going to put these for L1 and these ones for L2. So I'll give you a minute. If there's any other data in there, you can type over it. If you have more than you need, just delete it. Okay, once you're done entering in your data, again, you're going to go to this stat calc and go to your one variable stats. Okay, this time, since you do have a frequency list, make sure that that's listed on the calculator. For a frequency, you should have L2 in there. And then when you go through and see what that standard deviation is, okay, this one comes up to be 1.13. Okay, and you should also be able to check your mean on there because that should also show up on there. So list, you should have L1, frequency list L2 when you have it in this where you have the frequency list. Okay, remember that's a shortcut way for finding standard deviation. You don't have to do the long, complicated math equations. Okay, on number 11. Assume that a normal distribution of data has a mean of 13 and a standard deviation of 2. Use the 68, 95, 99.7 rule to find the percentage of values that lie below 7. Okay, remember how to think about that 68, 95, 99. So within one standard deviation, so like if this right here is our mean, okay, then we're talking about one standard deviation away. Okay, between here and here, we get 68% of our values. Okay, within one standard deviation. Then if we go 2 standard deviations away, this is where we have 95% of our values. And to go 3 standard deviations away, okay, that's where we end up with the 99.7%. And again, these are just estimates, but this is approximately how much each of your things are doing. So if we look at our data, okay, our mean was 13. So if I put 13 right there, and our standard deviation is 2. Okay, well I just go to add 2 on one side, so this would be 15, subtract 2 on the other side, and I get 11. Okay, and then I do that same thing. Okay, I keep going by 2. So 15 plus 2 is 17. 17 plus 2 is 19. So that's how we get 3 standard deviations away. And then on the left-hand side, we just keep subtracting 2. So I take 11 minus 2 is 9. And then 9 minus 2 is 7. So we want to know what is the percentage of values that lie below 7. Okay, well below 7 is just this teeny tiny little piece there, right? So what is left over to be below the 7? Okay, well I already know that whatever these two pieces are left, okay, these between 7 and 19 is 99.7% of our data, right? So if I'm thinking about 100 minus your 99.7, that only leaves 0.3% or pieces to be in these two sections, but I only want this section. Okay, I don't want the one over here. Okay, so then I have to take that 0.3 and split it into 2 parts. So if I divide that by 2, I get 0.15. So if we want to change that to a percent, we're going to move our decimal 2 places. Oh, these are already percent. Sorry, I don't need to move my decimal. That's a mistake. It's just the 0.15 because it's already a percent. So this is just the 0.15. So that is how much of my data would lie below 7. So you get the 0.15%. So again, think about where your data is, and that's how the 68, 95, 99.7 works. Okay, number 12. Given a mean, standard deviation, and a raw score, find the corresponding z-score. Assume the distribution is normal, and so we have the mean of 70, standard deviation of 2, and our raw score is 73. Okay, this is the one equation that you need to have for the test. So z equals, okay, we have our x value minus your mean, remember we use mu for mean, divided by your standard deviation, which they use this symbol here. Okay, so let's plug in to find our z-score. We're just going to plug in our x, which in this case was our raw score of 73. Our mean was 70, and our standard deviation was 2. So 73 minus 70 gives us 3 over 2, which is, as a decimal, 1.5. So that would be my z-score. So we have a z of 1.5. So again, just going through that formula, it's your x value, which is your raw score, minus your mean, which in this case was 70, divided by the standard deviation. Okay, so that is the formula. And sometimes your z-score, remember, ends up being negative if your raw score is less than your mean. Okay, the last one. The mean for a set of data is 66. The standard deviation is 2, and the z-score is 1.43. Find the raw score, round to 2 decimal places. Okay, this uses the same exact equation that we just used on number 12. Okay, here you have a mean of 66, standard deviation of 2, and you know what the z-score is. So we're going to put the z in place of z, the 143. It's going to equal, we are missing the raw score, so we're going to leave x in there. Then we're going to subtract our mean, which is 66, and our standard deviation is 2. So here we just have to go through and solve for x. So first I want to get rid of that 2 that's in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 so that that cancels on this side. So 2 times the 1.43 gives us 286 or 2.86. Now we're just left with x minus 66, so then the opposite would be adding 66 to both sides. So that cancels right there. And so if we do that, we add that, we get x equals 68.86. And that would be your x score. Okay, so go through and study these. There is also the review on Math Excel that you can do for extra practice to help you get some more practice on these types of questions, but make sure you know how to do each type of these for our test.